I'm spending my my days, my wonderful leisure time, going through Title 55 of the Tennessee Code. I'm going to study the Transportation Code inside and out and understand how it works. I think I have a basic understanding of it, and I'm going to save you the trouble of having to read it. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Not burden you with the details of what's in there, but I'm submitting myself to this green volume of about 1,000 pages because I just feel woefully ignorant about what's in it and how it's constructed. I think there is in statute books across the country, there is a deception going on afoot, and you can see the deception in Black's Law Dictionary, say between maybe the 4th edition and I think the current edition, maybe the 6th. I think I've got that one on my office shelf, the 6th edition. Maybe it's the 7th edition. No, I've got the 7th, but I also have a 6th to give to his son when he's ready to leave home. He can have his Black's Law Dictionary. And the definition of words such as traveling or driving. And what's happened is there's thanks to law commissions, there is a state law commission that has a job of unifying statute books around the country, and the goal is always in favor of commerce and in favor of profit, and the profit to the state, number one, and also profit to all the hangers-on and all the industries that feed off of the state's power to compel. That would be, for example, the insurance industry. The insurance model has infected state governments around the country, where the goal of insurance is, of course, to reduce risk and to have a pool of capital to pay for claims upon that pool, right? Damage claims, injury claims, and the like. The premiums, of course, collected is where the profit is. The profit is in having as many premiums as possible and as low payout as the contract allows. So, right, these are people who write contracts, and they want to make as big a profit as they can by denying claims and increasing premiums, right, as much as the market will bear. Government has taken on the same way of thinking by the regulatory society. The regulatory society comes from the insurance model, and it's no longer the interest of government to protect the rights of the people, to protect your rights, your property, your life from private evils, right? That is what government is there to do biblically and also constitutionally, to limit damage by evildoers, malefactors, the reckless, right? The careless, and those who are prone to fraud, violence, robbery, deception, thievery, and the like. Those are, because all those acts are damages to private people, and those private people need to be able to have redress, to be able to, if they're victimized, to be able to make them to be made whole again by the perpetrator. And that's what the state, in God's eyes, right, in Romans 13's eyes, its goal is to make that person whole again, and of course to exercise capital punishment. That the state has a limit there on punishment, and that is the capital offense. All of the punishment is restorative. It is in the area of restitution. The state oversees and governs restitution by malefactors of their victims. But we don't have that anymore. Courts don't serve that purpose anymore. Clearly, they rather are about the maintenance of the machine that has risen up in the modern progressive state since the 1870s, perhaps, when the progressive era ended. And we have a call. I do thank you for calling me. The number is, by the way, is 800-8949, 800-8949. And I have someone using that number now. This is David Tulis, and you're live on the David Tulis Show. What's on your mind?
Good morning. I wanted to refer back to a comment you made today.
Go ahead.
About possible program changing. And you mentioned something about a financial state or financial show in place of something else.
Yes, we're thinking of maybe having a Bloomberg business report.
Yeah, well, my problem with that is I prefer to hear the business report rather than whatever the other program was, which I don't listen to anyway. My problem is that you don't always broadcast. Your broadcasts are interrupted probably 25-40% of the time. So you're off the air as much as you're on the air almost. And that is a major concern. Way through the program, I lose you. You did. It happened this morning when you were interviewing the man from Nashville or Memphis, I forget which. So I cast my vote for the financial program, but I also want to cast a bigger vote for staying on the air.
Well, I really appreciate that. And sometimes we have there are dips and valleys where our signal doesn't reach. Where we are, you can hear us on 1240 a.m. and we're a North County station on that signal, and on our new FM is 92.7. We're not at full power with that, but we are very glad to have that signal and provide that service. And I don't know if you're caller, if you have capacity to hear high def, but we're on 95.3 HD4. That's 95.3 HD4. And if you have a smartphone, you can bypass the signal strength weaknesses if there are any, and that would be by having there's an app called TuneIn Radio, and if you have that on your phone, you can just type in Nooga Radio, and there we are. It'll play in your seat there digitally. So that's another advantage.
Do you simulcast both the AM and FM at the same time?
Yes, sir.
On the same program?
Yes, sir. All the same program. Hannity at 3 o'clock right now. We have Colin Cowherd, the sports. He's like the Sean Hannity of sports. We have him at noon, and I'm asking my listener what's better, sports or financial and business news. I think more economic and investment material might be attractive, and you seem to be putting in a vote for that. Then.
Yes, I am, but I'd also like to be able to hear it.
Yes, sir.
I can't always do that, or it's interrupted.
Well, I'm glad you're
a couple of times on the NASCAR races.
Yes, sir.
Very close to the end of the race, when the finish is coming to an end, is coming about. I lose it. The station disappears, and I'm listening to static.
Well, I'm very sorry about that. We are working at every moment to make the signal as strong as it can be, and I do appreciate your report for that. And listen, thanks for calling, and call again if you have things to say. I'm on every morning. My name is David Tulis, and glad you gave us a ring.
Will do.
Do thank you. The number is 800-8949. That's 800-8949. Glad to hear from you. We are thinking about questions about liberty and prosperity, and also personal courage. And I want to mention Anthony Gladden, who's the man who was behind the wheel of Demetrius Coonrod in mid-June. That car was stopped in a commercial traffic stop downtown, and the man Anthony, who works at Erlanger. He told me in a brief interview that he does have a driver's license from another state, but that there was some kind of shadow over there for an unpaid fine, and that he may have been charged. The charge is driving without a license, but there is no charge driving without a license. In fact, in Tennessee Code 555351, there is a statute though that comes close to it, and that is the Exhibit on Demand statute, and it says this. Every licensee shall have such licensee's operators or chauffeur's license in immediate possession at all times when operating a motor vehicle, and shall display the same upon demand of a court of general sessions, a peace officer, etc. So that applies to licensees. Now, we asked this question in view of the very large immigrant population that we have coming into Tennessee, seeking liberty, seeking prosperity, seeking to evade extraordinary gang violence, right? Gang violence is private violence, often connected with public violence. Here we have more public violence than private violence, so it's maybe a little bit better to be violated by the public officer than the private gang member. But they come here seeking prosperity, and many of them are not licensees. They are free travelers on the public right of way. And the whole question that we're looking at today with our TVA officer story is, what is the nature of that TVA investigation? Now, TVA provides your electricity resold to you at a profit by Electric Power Board, EPB, and so TVA is now, I would say gently, it's harassing the public. TVA, a new harassing member of the state against the public. Remember, law enforcement is what you want, right? And that's what you're going to get. Law enforcement, the law is being enforced against you. So it's always against the people. Law enforcement is not for the people, as Scott Fiedler of TVA says. It's not a public service. Law enforcement is against the people. That's why it's called enforcement, because it is being forced upon you and against you. You're being dragged to court. You're being fined. You're subject to arrest, right? If you are stopped in a commercial traffic stop, you are subject to being taken before the magistrate. That is to say, taken away from your car and your family members, left behind, and taken to a judge, and the demand being made that you be booked and jailed, and that the magistrate set, high bond or low bond for your release. That's what the officer does. He does that, but sometimes, well, probably often, he will simply cite you. He'll say you have to sign here once you've established who you are, and I will make claims against your driver license if you don't sign. And so every time there's a traffic stop, there is an arrest. A stop is an arrest. After all, that's what arrest means. It means to stop. If you're not free to leave, then you are under arrest. But no officer in Chattanooga, and I dare say that I doubt even the TVA officers, Mirandize anyone. And that's because we're so used to these impositions of the right of travel, as since we're not travelers, really. We think of ourselves rather as drivers and operators of motor vehicles. And we are subject to this licensee statute. So the exhibit on demand statute applies to Anthony Gladden, the man behind the wheel of city council member Demetrius Kumrod's car, because he was a licensee. So every licensee shall have such licensees, operators, or chauffeur's license in immediate possession at all times when operating a motor vehicle. That is entirely in this green book I'm holding up with the golden type on the edge. Tennessee Code. It is a commercial statute. Now, rights are not paid for. If you have a right to speak, you don't have to pay somebody ahead of time to do that. You don't have to pay somebody ahead of time for the platform that you're using, your website, your newspaper, your magazine. Those are done of a right. And so I think it's important for people to understand that if you have a right, you can exercise it harmlessly and innocently and freely. And you give that up only if you think that that the person is going to kill you. Okay, that's the only time you'd give that up. And then clearly the record should show that it is under duress. And I want you, my listener, to consider helping me out here. I'm trying to establish a record. I'm working on the unmarked car story, and Phil Noblet of the city attorney's office has not gotten back to me. I think I'm just going to have to go and say, okay, let's meet about this issue, because there is a form of terror that applies when an unmarked car stops someone. You can buy racks of lights for your dashboard. You can do that, and I'm afraid that we are setting someone up to become a victim, not here of a state crime against the people, but a private crime against a woman traveling in the dark at night on a lone road somewhere in Chattanooga, and an officer stops her, right, and then there's an abuse. So what we need to have is public enforcement needs to be public, right? If you're enforcing the statute, the commercial statute, against the traveling public and against operators of motor vehicles, it needs to be in public. It cannot be and should not be a private car, a police car disguised as a private car, because there are dangers to that. And there's also I think there should be statutory warrant for it. There has to be permission in the statute for it. And the closest the statute gives to that is to the sheriff's department. And that is that the sheriff's department may have unmarked cars for undercover and other purposes. And that's the other purposes bothers me, but it does say that. So does that apply to police departments such as that of East Ridge or Saudi Daisy or Chattanooga? I don't think so. So what we have is a question, and we're trying to find out the answer to this. This is a story that's pending, and I'm doing my best to get something out definitively before the chief of police is announced. That is something that is also pending. Mayor Andy Burke has three candidates: Roddy McPherson and the LAPD, the strong man from the LAPD, and I would say probably Mr. Ledford's the better option of the three. Partly because Mr. Roddy, David Roddy, is the armed man, right? He's the man who's the armed one. He's the man bearing the machine gun in the photograph on Nooganomics.com. He's the man who wants officers to be armored up, right? He wants the upgunning of officers, the up-arming, the up-surveillancing of the poor. That's something that he's all about. And I think that that's not the right direction. That is the direction that we don't want to go in. We have enough police violence already. And we have enough police crime already. And I say that is my proof of that statement is the Hanson Melvin case. Hanson Melvin is being sued right now by the folks who give you Legal Bites. Legal Bites is a great program right here at 11 o'clock every Wednesday. And the law firm is the McCoon Law Firm, and Clay Whitaker is handling the case where there is a conspiracy, a kidnapping of a man arrested without probable cause, walking while black, you might say. And a conspiracy of officers harassed this man when he was freed from jail the next morning. A remarkable development. The victim, a devout Christian man, a father of three, married, and who in God's providence came to our notice. You know, that's what I want you to do. Come to my notice. This is David Tulis. Let me find out about your situation. If you have an evil situation, let me know. Let us hear about your evil situations. You can call me at 800-8949, 800-8949. But contact me through Nooganomics.com. I'm the editor there, the writer, and Dave Crockett, that's what the website Dave Crockett reads when he wants to find out what's happening in free markets in Chattanooga. He is the leading Nooga centrist. I guess I'm number 2 compared to Dave Crockett. But we want to find out what's happening, and we rely on you, our listener, to bring me up to date. I'm the editor. I sort through all these things. I figure out what's important. And you're going to get from me what I offer as my best analysis of where we stand. Morally, theologically, we are very weak. We know very few people fear God. Very few people believe in his law. And because people are, you might say, antinomian, right? That means to say against law. They're against law. They think somehow that because we have grace, we don't have law anymore. They think there's a conflict and a contradiction between the two doctrines. We have a people who are indifferent to God's law and, sadly, indifferent to man's law. They're indifferent to the law of the marketplace. They're indifferent to the laws of capital. And they're indifferent to the operation of law that controls and constrains the officer, right? The officer is the grave threat today. The security state, the grave threat today. Why do you, my listener, think that the police are there for security? Well, they're not. They're there for peacekeeping, right? They're there for justice, not security. Not security. They're there for justice, right? To bring the malefactor to justice. They're not there to make you safe. If the duty of the officer is to make you safe, then you have to accept the total state. You have to accept roadblocks. You have to accept searches without a warrant. You have to accept bills of attainder. You have to accept statutes which create a presumption of guilt rather than create a burden of proof upon the officer. You accept all kinds of things. In the time of the colonists, there was huge opposition to impositions of that kind from the king. And today we have things far worse than those impositions of the British king against and the British Parliament against the colonists. It's far worse today, and yet we accept these things. I think we accept them, but you know, my thinking is that you, my listener, you should think in terms of defending yourself, know your rights. I'll tell you what, ask me to come and talk to your group, okay? I'd be happy to talk to your group. And what I'd really like to do is to have a course where we just discuss basic rights, basic assertion of rights. And I think particularly in the area of travel. I'm trying to bone up on that. Like I said, I'm reading this 1,000-page volume with about 500 pages of it giving over to the transportation statute and really understanding what that's about and finding out a way, with help of other fine men, how to deal with these threats that make people live in fear, that make people uneasy to be on the road. I think we need to, I would say, take comfort in God, take comfort in God's grace and God's sovereignty and his mercy, and say, well, what can I do here? The main idea behind Nooganomics is rebuilding, right? Rebuilding, reconstructing what's been broken, and that requires a long effort. And we talk about various aspects of that every day here on the David Tulis Show. And I really do thank you for giving me just a couple of minutes of your time. I'm I'm grateful that you think that maybe I can offer a good insight, a good bit of news, and some detail, maybe some legal analysis for you for the fortification of your mind and your spirit. Well, we have Legal Bites next. Again, questions about law, questions about enforcing rights, contract law, marriage law, probate law, and all kinds of things that the Legal Bite attorneys discuss. They're here for you. They're here with a great program. It's every Wednesday at 11, Legal Bites. And this is David Tulis. That's my name, David Tulis, Local Economy and the Free Market, brought to you by the website for the Man Who Matters that has exclusive content for the market, for liberty, for prosperity, and that is Nooganomics.com, Nooganomics.com.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM.
Now, me